Hello and welcome to this session of Architects Speak, hosted by Architects of World, a career development portal for architects. I am Snehal Jagdale Surve, and I'll be with you for this conversation with our guest today, James Law. So today we are here to discuss about design architect as a career pathway, and we have with us James Law. So James Law, a brief introduction about him is an architect, technologist, and entrepreneur. James is renowned for creating the philosophy of cybertecture, in which a better world is designed with technology to alleviate suffering for mankind. His company's projects cover buildings, spaces, technologies, education, and social design. He is the founder of architecture and interior technology design firm named James Law Cybertecture. Then he also runs Transitional Housing and Homeless Shelter under the name of Home B, Laboratory for Future Research firm Cybertecture X, Design Education Institute Cybertecture Academy, and charity Cybertecture for Humanity Horatio Law Foundation. His firm's projects are spread across the world, including Hong Kong, China, and India. So, James and his companies are winners of multiple international awards, including FT Asian Innovation Award, Edison Award for Innovation, Design for Asia Award, HSBC World Architecture Award, and is the recipient of Asian Arab Awards in 2019. So James, going through the education what James had, he received his undergraduate and postgraduate degree from Bartlett School of Architecture at University College London, and is a chartered architect of Royal Institute of British Architects, Architects Registration Board UK, Hong Kong Institute of Architects, Architects Registration Board Hong Kong, and American Institute of Architects. So James has passion for art, social innovation, and travel. His family resides in Hong Kong, London, and Dubai. And so now we know that he's into design, research, education, social cause of housing the homeless. So, welcome, James. It is a privilege to have you here with us today. And we would like to learn more about your journey into architecture. So, how did you get inspired about this field, and how did you get to be where you are? How did it all start?
Age of 7, I had come to know about the profession and fell in love with it. What happened was this. Actually, I came from a very ordinary, humble family. My parents did not have the chance to go to university, and they really wanted their children to have the chance to have a tertiary education. And when I was little, my parents used to say, try and be a doctor, trying to be a lawyer. But I never really believed in that because when I was around 7 years old, I happened to watch TV. And I saw a movie on TV about an architect and his work. And the movie really captures my imagination. And because of watching that movie, I suddenly fell in love with the profession of architecture. And I told my parents at a tender age of 7 that I knew what I wanted to do, and that was to become an architect. And they followed and let me follow my dreams. And so subsequently, through school, through junior school, through high school, I already knew what I wanted to do. I knew which subjects I needed to be good at, get good grades, and I was very lucky. I eventually got admitted into university and did my subject of choice. But that movie that I saw was the dramatization of the book, The Fountainhead.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so it was a black and white movie played by Gary Cooper, the character of Howard Rourke.
Yeah.
And even though at 7 years old, you really didn't know what the movie was really about, I was just fascinated with how the characters in this story struggled in life, had dreams to build a different kind of world through modern architecture, made models, made drawings, and then the skyscrapers would grow out of the ground. And that was what really captured me at the beginning.
Okay, so yeah, I think all us architects have been inspired at some point by some of the things that happens around us, and it's a very passionate field. It was not very traditional few years ago. Like, it was not meant like the parents did not push you in that direction at that point. So now at least there is quite a lot of awareness about architecture field. Spreading the awareness as well about this field. So to the young architects, like as you got inspired, you want to inspire some other students. So tell us what you're doing to get them like our field or spread the word about our field.
Well, so I've been an architect for I think several decades now. And as my career progressed and matured, I started to have a kind of instinct that I needed to not only do my own work, but also to look back and contribute some of my experiences back to a newer generation and younger generation of architects. It just happens that actually my mother is a retired primary school teacher. And she would often tell me about, the talents and the wonderful potentials of children. And so it got me thinking that quite often we are expecting, architects to know that they want to do architecture and they choose the course at a university, but they rarely have the chance to actually understand what is architecture before they go to college. And they really don't have a chance to see what the job of being an architect really is in real life. So about 8 years ago, I happened to meet a bunch of secondary school students after I gave them a lecture about architecture. And they were so fascinated, they came up to me and asked me if I would be willing to run a summer course for them. And I said, okay, sure, I can try. And that year I hosted I think a 2-week summer course, which was held in my studio, in my office here, for about 20 students. And they really had a great time, and I had a great time as well. And I witnessed that these very young students who had not chosen what they wanted to do at university yet, they really embraced the chance to experience architecture in a real office, to be able to participate in some of the activities. We gave them some assignments and projects and challenges to do, and they managed to learn how to draw, use the computer, etc. And so that really led to a realization that not only could I contribute my work through my projects, but I can also contribute my work through education. So that first summer course then became named as the Cybertecture Academy. And I proceeded to do it every year for the last 8 years for young students. And up till now, the premise has been to really give the opportunity for pre-university students to have the chance to experience architecture. This year, because of COVID-19 and the difficulties of traveling, we're trying to bring this whole thing online. And then we are also going to try and make it more available to current architecture students who want to learn a little bit more beyond their current curriculum. And then also to maybe young professionals as well who want to continue their pursuit intellectually whilst they're actually starting their actual working careers. So that's how it started, was really trying to give the chance to more younger people to understand the job of an architect, the life of an architect, and what architect Cybertecture is really about before they actually even go to college.
Oh, wow. Actually, we have to spread the word about our own profession, which is little known, which is maybe misunderstood. So, would you like to tell us a little bit about how you, after you graduated, how you started your journey as a professional and how you got to open your own firm and do what you're doing right now?
Sure. So I graduated 5 years of architecture school in London. And during my year out, which is done after the third year, I got a really wonderful chance to go to Japan to
Oh.
work for a year and really immersed in an incredible different environment. And then when I graduated, I worked for some small practices in London and Europe before returning back to Hong Kong, my home city, where I proceeded to practice for about 4 to 5 years, I think, in bigger practices, some international practices here in Hong Kong. Then when I was 30, I decided to leave employment and start my own practice. And this was a decision that I think was made quite naturally for me because, of course, I was very motivated from a very young age. And when I was at the Bartlett University, it was a very creative and imaginative school. So we were all really jazzed up with our own thoughts and ideas and philosophies. And then the years subsequently working for other people was a period of, learning and gaining real working experience on real projects. And then it got to a stage where I think I felt I was ready to try and take on board my own passions and my embedded experiences and try to make a go of starting my own practice. And this was, in the early 2000s. And at that time, there were opportunities. There was quite a strong economy. And so I managed to get my first projects, and step by step, the practice has been ongoing. And so it's been a natural progression, I think, powered by probably a fundamental belief that I was going to work for myself at some point. And this period of running my own practice, starting it and running it, and continuing to progress with it has been incredibly fulfilling. And it's fulfilling in a very kind of interesting way where, yes, you pursue your own agenda a lot of the time, but then you also learn to run a business, and you also have to navigate the ups and downs of the economy and opportunities. And that's been also a very, I think, a very incredible part of my career so far is to run my own practice. Yeah.
So yeah, once you start your practice, it's initial years. First of all, what I gather is we all have been through that. Like you have to first gain some experience before you, as soon as you get out, so that you know how the firms work, how the architectural practice is all about. When you start your own practice, there are some real challenges, life challenges beyond design. So, can you, talk about some of the challenges that helped you shape your practice or help you shape yourself as a practicing architect and establish yourself? So,
Yeah, sure. Uh, you know, running a practice or running your own business is an entirely different kettle of fish from what we conceptually know as being an architect. I think as an architect, we have our duties, but then when we run a business, there's a lot more that you have to handle. There's a lot more complexity and difficulties and challenges that you have to navigate, which you may not necessarily have been taught or guided as to how you do it. Everything from, balancing the books to human resource management to, managing your risks, to marketing yourself, to business development, and then to actually deliver on your promises. All of these have to be done right in order for your business to survive, let alone thrive. And so running an architecture practice is not easy. It is not, I think often, running your own practice, there's a lot of kind of jazzy kind of feeling that, oh, it's so glamorous and you have your own practice and you have your name on the door. But with that name on the door, your responsibilities are pretty large and complex. And so it is a challenge, but it's also like, I think it's the same for every entrepreneur. If you have that spirit and that enthusiasm to try to run your own business, there's incredible satisfaction when you run it. You often have your ups and your downs, and you have to even kind of savor the downs as well as the ups. And but it's like life, right? It's like life. It's not always going to be successful all the time. It's not always going to be easy all the time. And the extra dimension that comes with running a practice is, of course, you want to perhaps do a kind of work that you love, but are you able to make a living and run your practice doing that work? And it's a very delicate balance, and it's something that every one of us struggles with, and every one of us have to see whether we have the talent and the luck and the kind of hard work that is needed to try to achieve that duality of doing the work that you love as well as making a living. Yeah.
So, like what you talked about are common for all businesses, that you have to establish yourself, run it, manage every day to day. As a design architect or a design firm, you have even more work to put in, because you have to be creative as well. At the same time, you have to give solutions to your clients in a very innovative way or a creative way, which they are not seeing, something that you have to make them look or see or visualize. So making this shift in their viewpoint, or making them understand that they need this kind of innovative solution, or the technological advanced solution that you are offering. How difficult is that to what challenges do you face in that?
um, I think the real situation is not as simple as that. It's not so much the innovation or the creativity is necessarily always demanded by the clients. Actually, most of the time, clients wants to be safe and they want to be average. They want to be secure. And so they're not after the creativity and they're not after the ultra innovations. And so, what we try to do always is to meet the client's needs first, and then put in some extra effort to try to educate them into the benefits of some additional creativity or some additional innovation. We never really start off with trying to reinvent the wheel and just try to, do something that they don't understand or they just have to do on trust. We don't want to do that because it's always a huge investment and a huge risk for them. So as architects, we sometimes have to really be quite practical and realistic about what we can achieve. Now, I think different clients go to different architects for different kind of solutions. I think clients who are looking for a little bit more creativity or want to see something a little bit different will come to a firm like ours. And then other clients who want to be, a little bit more like mass market will go to firms which are very experienced at that. So you tend to a degree get clients that understand you a little bit if you already have some reputation. However, I always give this analogy that in the world of today, it's not really the technology or the innovation that sells itself.
Yes.
Is what value it brings to the project. And so it's not necessarily just making something different or something wow or something that people see as iconic or something that is just just out of the world, and then yes, people would take it. No, it's very much the other way around, which is that there's an opportunity to do something practically within budget, within time, within their requirements, but you are able to inject a little bit of X factor into it, so that they feel that they're getting more out of the project than they even thought themselves would. And then some of that agenda is I think very important, because some of that agenda of the X factor now is related to sustainability. It's related to the environment. It's related to alleviating people's suffering, providing affordability, all of these things. And so well, I personally I personally think that every opportunity, every project is, in a small or big way, an opportunity to contribute something magical. But that magic isn't what sells the project. What's fundamentally important is it addresses the needs of the client, and it addresses the needs of the people who are going to be using and living or working in your project. Yeah.
Yeah. So as design architects, I think most of the students who are in architecture school have this myth that we design good-looking buildings and we will do something very innovative, something good renderings and good 3Ds, and that will make us famous, or that will make us noticeable. But it is as I gather from your talking, it is much beyond that. It is much about satisfying the needs, fitting it into budgets, doing it's a lot of things rather than the client. So we have to first satisfy the client. It also goes beyond the client, realms of client. It goes to the society at large. So as design architects, how are we influencing people or society? In your work also, you're doing something. So tell us about, as design architects, what responsibilities towards the society which we can fulfill.
Yeah, it's definitely true that design affects people. And when we design well and we do good design, I think people do appreciate it and actually get some tangible reward, whether it's a very functional hospital that is saving people's lives, to schools which have great education spaces that promote learning. Um, you know, Good design is very much at the heart of our continuing fabric of creating a good society, and buildings and architecture certainly play a very big part in that. And I think your first statement about doing nice designs or beautiful designs and renderings, whatever, that's absolutely all good and fine, and that's the passion that we have behind our work. I think where there it goes a little bit off the path is when you know design is designed for its own sake. It's done because you love it, you love a certain style, you like a certain trend, you like a certain shape,
Mm-hmm.
and you think that the most extraordinary picture that of something that you put up is necessarily what is the best solution to the actual project. And I think that is wrong, and I think that is something that takes education and time and maturity as a designer to be able to control one's own ego about what one's architecture should be doing. Um, it's not a bad thing when we are reminded that we don't own the building. We're not going to live in that building. We're not going to work in that building. At most, we'll take a photograph when it's done, and we might get some awards for it, but then we're not the people living with the project in the end.
Yes.
So, design and society has a very important relationship that needs to be nurtured and processed in a very kind of professional and very responsible way, I think. Um, but then design also has this incredible opportunity and ability to inspire. And that's something else as well, where we are showing new examples, new vocabularies, new understandings of space, new strategies to how we can build the built environment so that the society can, address certain problems or certain challenges, build new industries, create new employment. Um, so yeah, it's a interesting. It's like a you know, creativity and design is a power that those who are trained to have or given the responsibility to do is a very powerful tool, and it can be wielded rather irresponsibly as well as quite responsibly, and the
Mm-hmm.
choice is yours. And I think finding that zone
Uh-huh.
that you feel comfortable with uh, is one of the marks of a mature architect.
Uh-huh.
That he knows when is too much and when is too little, when is too ambitious or when is not ambitious enough, and to be able to balance the needs of all the stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a good design for society. Yeah.
Yeah, so design architects do like what we see in magazines and we see in websites are very beautiful buildings which are very expensive to operate and to build because they have some dynamic shapes and mechanism to it. But design architects' duty is not only to cater to very high-end clients or people who have money. We also have a duty towards all spectrum of the society. So even your work, you have been catering to all kind of clients from high end to low end. So tell us about how you change your strategies or your solutions as per the type of people or the type of budgets you are representing.
Well, we don't really need to change our strategy.
Mhm.
We are basically responding to
Mhm.
the requests of our clients. And so when we're doing a so-called high budget project, a expensive A grade project,
Mhm.
then we are designing to those needs. And then when we are being requested to design something low cost,
Mhm.
then we are responding to those needs. In both cases, it is design. There's no difference. They're not, for us, it is no contradiction. There is no need to sacrifice either way in order to do either one of these kind of projects.
Mhm.
I think there is a relevance and a kind of sensitivity that we use to every opportunity. We're really grateful for every opportunity. So we do our best with every challenge or every design that we need to make. and we do our best in that. We don't necessarily need to change because I think there is also this fundamental realization that neither one is better than the other. You know, it's not that you do a skyscraper. It is a better project than a affordable housing project. They're just two projects, and you can argue either one of them are very important. You know, the affordable project will alleviate the housing problem of many people who don't have money, but then the skyscraper is also important for the pride of a place or a city or a company or a society. And so, yeah, we believe that design can be applied to everything, and to take pride in every kind of opportunity is probably the driver, the commonality of approach that we try to do on all of our projects. Yeah.
Besides just clients, you have also been in some of the committees or in some government initiatives. So as design architects, we are supposed to be putting our creative side into some solutions for policies or some social welfare or on a bigger picture. So as design architects, I think we how can we contribute to something that is much bigger than our sites? Then it is not like just to our sites or to our just one client that we are serving, but to our society as a whole. So what are the roles a design architect can contribute to the society by being part of some government policies or agendas? So if somebody is interested into that, how can they contribute?
Sure. So often, design architects are perceived to be people who are just drawing nice drawings and coming up with nice aesthetics or nice designs. But actually, designers, when they're doing design, they're thinking much more than just the end product. We're thinking about the issues at stake. We are thinking about the impact of our design if and when it is executed. And therefore, our thinking about design is very much related to strategic issues, strategic issues of the environment, strategic issues of using resources, strategic issues of land use, of space. And so in many ways, the ideas that are derived from our designs can also be applied on a policy level, can be thought of as another set of variables that we could explain to people who are in positions of policy about how the built environment could really be a very good kind of platform for reform, for new ideas, for new strategies. I mean, for example, we as architects, we design commercial buildings and we design residential buildings. And in our city, overall, cities are organized around commercial and then residential.
Yeah.
But, because we are designing the residential buildings and the commercial buildings, we can also think in the design concept, things like hybrids, which are both residential and commercial.
Yes.
And then we can tell the policymakers that, by the way, it is possible not to be either one, it could be both.
Yeah.
If a certain site or if a certain location needs to be both, it doesn't have to be restricted to one or the other. And that's an example of how designers can, open up more avenues or solutions to policymakers. And so, yeah, I think we do have a role to play. We're not necessarily as broad as politicians, but we are certainly experts in, the built environment and how society is impacted through the built environment. So we do have, quite a lot of, I think, knowledge to contribute when it comes to, helping to craft better policies for building the built environment. Yeah.
Yeah, so besides just doing good looking buildings, we can contribute to a better livable, better functioning, better environment for people of the cities. So I believe as architect too that built environment influence the lives of people. If you give them a good environment, if you give them a good setting, it changes the way they live. It changes, elevates the level of people. So there are a lot of things that we can contribute to society as designers by being problem solvers for them, being finding creative solutions, because we are taught to be creative. So creative solution is something that we always can contribute to the society.
Yeah.
Like one is problem solving. There are any other skills which you like to highlight, which an architect, a aspiring design architect should develop themselves into, something they can
Wow.
learn and develop.
I, I think the list is infinite,
Great.
right?
Yeah.
I think to be good at anything, to become a master in what you do, there's an infinite number of things that you continuously have to learn and progress in. And that's not just for the young architects, that continues for me and other people in the profession, that we can never really just say that we know enough. We also continues to learn. And I think, looking back at my own journey, what I think I really have been very lucky, and also been very, it's helped me a lot. It's been, in my education, I had quite a international education. So I really had the chance to touch on many cultures.
Yeah.
I had the chance to travel. So I really, never really felt that there was just one way or one place. There was always so many other possibilities. I think I also learned about, the sensibilities of
Mhm.
different cultures, the politics of different cultures, the structures of different cultures and place. And that's helped me to practice in quite a lot of different places, because everywhere is different. There are commonalities, which
Mhm.
also makes you be able to bring your talents to another place, but then you also have to respect the differences between
Yes.
places. But I think ultimately, I think there is something to learn, which is that, uh, and it goes back to our wonderful profession of architecture, is that, um, and it sounds rather kind of romantic to say this, but every decision we make, every line we draw, which results in a wall, results in a structure, results in a building, results in an architecture, has immense kind of influence
Uh-huh.
on people.
Mhm.
And so you have to continuously learn about people. You have to
Yes.
continuously learn about their concerns. You have to be continuously wary of their sensitivities.
Mhm.
You have to be guardians of their well-being,
Uh-huh.
and you have to plan ahead for their future. And so, in order to do that, you have to try to have quite a broad knowledge base,
Mhm.
from things about understanding economics to politics to the environment
Mm.
to new technologies.
Mm.
And only by doing that can you really have the kind of how would you say, have the kind of sensitivity and understanding of how people live now and in the future that would be enabled by good design that you do, because otherwise you would do design that is irrelevant.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I gather from your talk is a design architect cannot stop learning at any point of time. They have to continuously evolve themselves, because to solve a problem or to give a solution to anybody, there are many dimensions that you have to understand. And you have to understand a lot of different layers of that problem to give an actual solution. So I think with that attitude, there are a lot of avenues which might be open for a design architect. One is entrepreneur, like you start your own practice. Any other thing that you would suggest our participants or young architects, that where they can start if they want to develop as a design architect, and what are the avenues open for them?
Well, I think the world will really continuously need design. And if you're a design architect, you'll be needed in the profession. Architecture firms will not become construction companies overnight. There will still be a need for design talent to be there to answer to the needs of projects and briefs, etc. And so the way to to progress is, of course, to probably find a job in a company that will give you opportunities to exercise and learn about design, and hopefully have the chance to see through the whole process, because the difference between education and practice, especially early stage practice, is that in education you've learned everything in theory, but then it's not until you practice and you actually built your first building do you really understand the full process. So the implications of your design, the practicalities of your design, the actual outcome of your design is not really learned until you have practice. So for young design architects, it's probably quite good for them to find jobs which give them a chance to see through that whole process, and not necessarily just focused on doing renderings and just helping out making models or whatever. If you can find an environment, a practice, an employer that could nurture you through this whole process and let you have the chance to learn through this whole process, then I think you get a lot out of understanding your own abilities and your own kind of decisions about design. So that's my advice, is to go to a practice that you can really learn, because they know that your talents are important, but then they will also make sure that you have a very balanced and broad exposure to design, and not just like college where we are just drawing something that we like. We need to deal with the real world when we're in practice, and from there you can learn a lot.
Okay, so with that, I think if you have any message for our young architects, something that inspires them, that will be good, and we can then open up a question and answer session.
Well, it's for many of us who choose to become architects, I think we are all driven by passion. This isn't really an easy job to do. And for most of us who've chosen to be architects, it's because we have a passion for it. So, for the younger ones who are entering the profession, it is important to always nurture your own passion. And you should try not to let that go or let that die out. Try to navigate your career in a way where it's both practical but also nurture your passion. And that might involve choosing the right employers, hopefully targeting to work on certain projects that really fascinates you, and then also to continuing to learn yourself about what is important in architecture for yourself, and perhaps one day to even start your own practice so that you have a greater degree of control over what makes you passionate. So that's my advice is, the passion is the fuel that gives you the X factor when we are dealing
Yes,
with
yes.
the very, very difficult daily jobs of being an architect. It's hard work, it's long hours, it's underpaid, it's underappreciated, and but your passion is the thing that will carry you through and win. I think it makes you win at the end of the day, because it just proves that nothing is more important than your own belief and passion in architecture and your work. And so that's my advice.
Yeah, so yeah, follow your passion. That's the underlying thing, that we have all got into this profession through our passion, and that has to continue for life, and that's what makes us happy, and that's what will give a society a real, solutions from us, a real what we can do for the society is very important. So we become a very important part of our society, giving them a good ambience. We have very great responsibility towards our society to give them a very good built environment and give them places where they can be happy. So a happy environment makes people happy and content. So we have a great responsibility at our hand as design architects. So the initial years to establish yourself as design architects are the most toughest part, I guess. That as your work starts springing up into different areas, it becomes much easier to show an example of what you can do, and it gives you some opportunities to take your clients to your projects and then show them. James, I would like to ask you one simple question: is if you're trying to work internationally, is there any problems that you face regarding the regulations and the type of culture that you're addressing? Has there been some challenges in that area?
Of course, working internationally is not easy, because every place has different rules, and have different needs, different regulations. And so, yeah, the challenge is always to know what you can do and what you can't do when you are doing international projects. You might be invited because you can bring a certain something, because you are recognized for doing a certain something, but then you would not be an expert in the local rules or the local regulations. So you need to be willing to collaborate, or also to learn from local experts and professionals. Other things are, the basic challenges of course, working at different time zones,
Uh-huh.
a lot of traveling, and then communicating in different languages, and signing contracts, and delivering what people expect and hope they'll get from you, and that all is a little bit more complicated because this is international. um, but there's a double-edged sword, because if you can work internationally, then your market is bigger,
Yeah,
then also your diversity of clients is bigger,
yeah.
and it's quite satisfying when you can complete a international project. But it comes with at a price, which is that you have to put in extra work and
Mhm.
overcome these kind of extra hurdles. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a big community of architects all over the world, and we should be talking to each other more, exchanging ideas so that we can all can work collaboratively and, you know, contribute with each other's ideas and technology, because I'm sure everywhere there are certain problems or certain things that you can learn from. There might be solution that you have found out, and maybe in our country it's not yet there. So as a community, as architects, we need to talk to each other. We need to get together so that we can help each other out, and
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So I think that possibility, we should always keep it open among us architects, and even as design architects, it's not necessarily that you work within your own shell. You can always seek or extend, ask for help to the people who are already into that field, and I think we should help each other so that we can grow together as a community or a
Yes.
fraternity of architects. Thank you very much. It was a very, inspiring and insightful talk. So we are open to questions. So anybody who would like to have a one-on-one with James, we can even unmute them. And you can talk to him directly, and go forth for your questions if you have any. Or you can type it in the chat box. We have that open as well. Maitri Joshi has written something. How to come up with a new idea and creative use of construction material for any project in a short span of time. Do we need to do research in these fields and then apply when an opportunity appears?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I think in answer to your question, I think it's not possible to come up with entirely new ideas and creative use of materials very quickly. Most of these ideas and research is done, over a long time, and from your experiences of doing, past projects or learning from other people's projects, and then slowly you get the chance to try them out. So, we really don't have the opportunity in one go to say reinvent a material or reinvent a certain idea and just do it for a project. And you mentioned about research. Yeah, I think research is definitely part of the learning that we have to continuously immerse ourselves in. We may not directly be using some of the innovations or some of the new materials or some of the new construction techniques immediately in our own project, but we have to be aware of them. And then we also hopefully should try and squeeze some time and effort to try and learn about them, whether it's things like modular construction, to new software like BIM, and then further down the road, virtual reality, AI. We need to be touching on these things and keep learning about what they mean and what they are. And if you can have the time, or if you have the people that can actually get in depth to be actually using it, then these creative ideas and innovations will come into your project. And it's continuous effort. It's a continuous effort. It's always, looking and learning in order to filter things in slowly and build up a repertoire of ideas and archive of ideas that you can use for your projects.
So learning never stops, and research should go on. So when I think you come across a new material, you study it. It takes time to absorb it and then apply it to your project. So it cannot happen once the opportunity. We do that. I think the opportunities, after the opportunities come in, we do look for, while looking for solution, we come across new things and then we apply it. But as James said, that if you're continuously researching something, it becomes much easier to apply to your projects then. Thank you, Maitri, for your question. I hope we answered your question. Okay, we have one from Pritika. She's saying, hello, sir. Your talk was really inspiring and motivating. You mentioned about design affecting the people in contact with it. And since you work in the world market,
yeah, so from my experiences working around the world, one of the things I really observed is why I was invited from Hong Kong, which is my home, to other places, for example, to the UAE, to Dubai, or then to Mumbai. And I think, first of all, there was a reason, and the reason was that these places were looking to build newer architecture. They were looking to modernize and expand, and they were inviting architects from other places that they wanted to emulate to go there. And so that was how I went there. And so the first thing that you really feel about the people that you're building for when you go to these other places and these new markets is that they are all in a way the same as you, which is that they have an aspiring dream. They want to improve. They want to be in a better buildings. They want to be in a better city. And so what you're bringing to their city in terms of your design or your architecture is going to be really affecting them, because they are looking to you to curate and craft their future environment. And so you feel that even more than when you're building in your own home city, because your home city is not so fresh as what you would feel when you're going to a new place somewhere in the world. And you know what you're going to bring is going to be a little bit different than what they're used to. So there is a sensitivity needed in understanding that, and to really get to the heart of the issues, which is, what do people really want there? Let's not just assume they want to be just a copy of Hong Kong. What do they really want there? What do they really need there? And what would be even more terrible would be to just copy something that wasn't very good anyway in Hong Kong and then just bring it to this new place. So back to your question is, how do people respond to it? Is as a foreign architect going to a new place, they're looking to you to bring something new and fresh, but then they would also very much hope that you bring something that is new and fresh, that is relevant to them. And that's how they will respond to it. And if it all goes well, then they will cheer and they'll say you've done a great job. But if you haven't done a good job, then they will say like, oh, what a waste of time. Why are we inviting this foreign architect to come to our place? He doesn't understand, he doesn't care, he just wants to do what he wants. And that's my experience of that.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope, Pritika, your question is answered. The next question is from Sagar Khare. He's saying, hello, sir. It's very general consideration that being a design architect, the major concentration is in aesthetics. But if there is case where you have compromised on aesthetics or function, so as a design architect, what do you compromise on and how do you tackle the situation?
Thank you. I think this is an interesting question, Saga. I think the way you phrase this question is, in a way, if you don't mind me saying, it's a little bit oversimplified. Design isn't just about aesthetics. Design is a very complex thing. It's many things in architecture. it's organizing the project, is organizing the space, is organizing the structure, is how you use the time and the resources, the materials. Of course, the aesthetics is part of that, and the message and the story of the building, that's also part of design. And aesthetics is just one part of all of those things that make a design. And so, you know, I think the way you paraphrase by saying that when aesthetics have to be compromised, or function has to be compromised, then I think that's where it's too oversimplified in its consideration, because a good design or a working design needs to have everything, right? It needs to have a degree of aesthetics. It needs to have a degree of functionality. It has to have a degree of budget. It has to have a degree of practicality. It has a degree of everything. And it all has to work together. Then it is a good design. And of course, sometimes you need to slightly adjust them, right? You know, when the budget is a bit low, you can't quite use the expensive materials, and the aesthetic has to adjust. And then, you know, the functional side, okay, you know, they want to do, you know, all of these things, but then the budget doesn't allow it. Then, you know, you have to advise the client, we have to take out this function in order to preserve the other functions, which is the best way of getting your function for your dollar, you know, all of these things. So it's like a holistic consideration. And the skill of a design architect is to balance all of those issues in a holistic way. And it's never really about avoiding compromise. It is about embracing compromise. It is about embracing compromise, but be able to control it so that the end result is holistically a good design or a good project. So fighting the compromise on design is a wasteful battle, because if it needs to be compromised, then it's better to be positive and say what other way we can do it so that it can still be a great project, right? There's no point fighting the client. For example, if it's a private project and the client doesn't like the style and you're saying, no, I'm the architect, this is the best way. It's never going to work, right? That you have to compromise the aesthetics. Function is a little bit different, because function is not necessarily something that you can easily compromise on, but you can organize it better, right? You know, if somebody is saying, you know, they want to have a very, you know, they want to build a museum with, you know, this kind of gallery and that kind of gallery, that kind of gallery, and it all kind of contradicts, and you can't afford to do it on that site, then you have to advise the client and say, oh, this function works, but that function is a bit irrelevant. And it's a much better composition if you just focus on the other two functions. But it's never really compromised by saying, okay, if you want a gallery, we'll give you a bad gallery because you still want a gallery and you don't want it our way, and therefore we'll give you a bad one. It's not like that. So yeah, I think it's a very nice question that you asked, because it shows the depth and the intricacies that you need to embrace if you are a designer. It's not as simple as I want it in a circle and I get a circle. If it's not a circle, then it's a failure. Or I want to do a pyramid and it's not a golden pyramid, it's going to become a silver pyramid, and therefore I won't take that. Don't go there. This is not, it doesn't work like that. It's a bit of a mirage about what architecture and architects do. Great buildings and some of the great, you know, lasting architectures haven't come out of the ego the pure single ego of the architect. It might be portrayed in that way, that, you know, there's a star architect, or there's a, you know, a dominating force who says, you know, that's the creative vision, let's do that. But most of the so-called brilliant buildings, whether you call them masterpieces or great architecture, are a symphony of balancing so many different factors, but they've been balanced so brilliantly that it comes out to be a symphony of beauty, a symphony of appreciation. And so don't see it like that as a compromise and therefore it's a failure. It's not. Compromise is very much part of a good design. Yeah.
Sagar, very good question. And James, you have summarized the entire philosophy or the struggle or the challenges of a design architect in that answer. So yeah, it's not that simple of how we used to have like college arguments of functionality against aesthetic. It's much bigger. And but it's enjoyable, as James has already mentioned. It is nothing to be afraid of, or nothing to be it's a very positive challenge. It inspires you to do much more. It fuels your passion. So when these problems come in front of you, it fuels you to find solutions for it, come up with something, go towards the end, achieve your end result of giving a structure or a solution, or a beautiful or a well thought of building solution to your clients and to your users. So it's a very fulfilling feeling, and it's the pain worth taking, I would say. As design architects, it's what fuels us, and it keeps us going. So on that note, I think we will wind up here. And thank you, James, for a really practical, practical aspect, showing us a practical aspect of a design practice, a design architect's work. And it will be surely inspiring, and it will surely be motivating to people who wants to take this design architect as their career pathway. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you all the participants to patiently listen, attend this seminar, and come up with such a good question. So be in touch with us. We come up with such seminars from time to time. We invite a lot of guests to our platform. Thank you. Thank you, James, for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Stay well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.